Welcome to our fourth chapter in OB. Our chapter today is about attitudes and job satisfaction. The learning objectives for this today is one, to contrast the three components of attitude, to summarize the relationship between attitudes and behavior, and to compare and contrast the major job attitudes, define job satisfaction and show how it can be measured, summarize the main causes of job satisfaction, and identify 4 employee response to job dissatisfaction. Attitudes. What are attitudes? We all have them. But how do we define attitudes? Attitudes are evaluative statements or judgments concerning objects, people, or events. And today, because we are studying organizational behavior, we are definitely also going to study job attitudes. And when we're talking about attitudes or defining attitudes, we are talking about job attitudes. And so these are how we evaluate our jobs, whether fairly or unfairly, whether positively or negatively. That is job attitudes. Now, attitudes have 3 components. There is the cognitive component, which is the opinion or a belief of the belief component of an attitude. E.g., my pay is low. You have realized, you have recognized that your pay is low. So that is the cognitive part. Then there's the affective part, which is the emotional or the feeling segment of an attitude. And that will lead you to say, I am angry over how little I am paid. That's now emotional or the feeling. And then the third component is the behavioral, which is the intention to behave in a certain way towards something or someone. And an example is, I am going to look for another job which pays better. That is now behavior. So they move in that step by step. You first recognize it in your mind that something is not good. Then you move to express yourself or your feeling, and then you act. You act. Those are the 3 components of attitudes. The question is, does behavior always follow from attitudes? You know, the importance of studying attitudes is because it leads to particular behavior, and behavior is important in OB. We all do something for an end, for an end purpose, and therefore everything we learn here in OB is to lead us to something which is our outcome. And in OB, our outcome is sometimes productivity, sometimes satisfaction, and so on and so on. So now, does behavior always follow from attitudes? Early research on attitudes assumed they were causally related to behavior, that people's attitudes determine how they behave. However, one researcher called Leon Festinger argued that attitudes follow behavior. They are not causally related, but they follow. An attitude follows behavior. Other researchers have agreed that attitudes predict future behavior. The research on attitudes and their relationship to behavior is still ongoing, and so we are just showing a bit of debate about relationship between attitudes and behavior at work. Now, cases of attitude following behavior also illustrate the effects of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, which are the contradictions individuals might have between their attitudes and their behavior. We have predicted, it's generally predicted that attitudes lead to particular behavior. But if particular attitudes don't lead to the particular behavior we expect, then there is a dissonance. There is a contradiction. a dissonance. So that cognitive dissonance is uncomfortable, but sometimes you can make it comfortable. So individuals seek to reduce this uncomfortable gap or dissonance to reach stability and consistency. Dissonance is a negative word, and therefore a rational person will try to reduce dissonance. So normally, if you find that your behavior is contradictory to your attitude, or your attitude is not following, is not leading to a particular behavior, then there is a dissonance. That dissonance is uncomfortable, and you may work to reduce it. So consistency is normally achieved by changing those attitudes or by modifying behavior or through rationalization, where you begin to justify why you're doing certain things. Because it is outside the norm, you begin to give reasons why you're doing certain things. So the desire to reduce dissonance depends on the following: the importance of the elements that create it, the degree of individual influence we believe we have over the elements, and the rewards involved in dissonance. High rewards normally accompanied by high dissonance and tend to influence our behavior. So dissonance has factors that cause it, and therefore some people behave differently from what they are supposed to behave. So for reasons that I mentioned here and other reasons that I'm not mentioned here, what causes one to behave differently? An example could be that somebody thinks that he is staying in an apartment which is very good, excellent. And then when he goes to check a neighbor's apartment, he thinks, oh, this one is even better or worse than mine. So sometimes the situation makes you to change your attitude towards something. That's very common. We normally change our attitude when the environment changes. So are there moderating variables? The variables that moderate the relationship between attitudes and and the outcomes, namely behavior. The most powerful moderators of attitude-behavior relationship are: one, the importance of the attitude. The importance of the attitude. When the attitude is very important, that the link between attitude and behavior will be stronger. But if it is weak, then the link between attitude and behavior will be weak. There's also the correspondence to behavior. Does that attitude directly correspond to behavior? If the correspondence to behavior is not very direct, that relationship is moderated otherwise. There's also accessibility. So is the attitude or is the behavior easily accessible? Because there are certain things that are difficult to achieve or attain. So your attitude may be right, but then the behavior is not accessible. Sometimes we want to upload our assignments on Moodle, and then you log in and either the network is low or the system is down on this side. You're struggling, you don't know what is going on. You haven't got information what is going on, so you think you are the problem. You want to do something right, but then there are other factors in between there that cause you not to submit your work. So you feel very uncomfortable. Say, I had the right attitude, I want to submit my work, but then there are other things that are causing you not to access it. So that can also influence that relationship. So there are also things like presence of social pressures. Some social pressure can be both positive and negative. I mean, every good student is expected to love his studies, to love his work, to appreciate what is given to do, and so is expected to perform to work out his assignment on time and submit it. But now, if you have friends who say, we can do this thing tomorrow, and then tomorrow is we can do it next week, so on and so on, you'll see that the pressure of your friends can cause you actually not to achieve your objective, which is submitting your work on time. Now, if you live with people who are very positive minded, who care about their studies, they will also cause you social pressure. When you want to play, they will say, no, we have to work. We have to finish this work. You cannot go anywhere until you finish this work. That's also social pressure that can be very useful. And so a particular attitude will definitely lead to a particular behavior if the social pressure in between there is very strong. And finally, we can say that there's personal experience with the attitude. So the attitude that you're familiar with and that you hold all the time may actually lead you to particular behavior. But if something is unfamiliar, it is a danger that it might not lead you to behavior. Therefore, attitudes always predict behavior, but they are influenced by moderating variables, which we have tried to explain, and the others that we have not explained. So, how do we predict behavior from attitudes? So, important attitudes have a strong relationship to behavior. The closer the match between attitude and behavior, the stronger the relationship. We've been talking about how attitudes can lead to particular behavior. And you need to keep thinking about yourself. What kind of attitudes do I have? Generally speaking, because you're not yet work, you're not an employee yet. Well, you may be doing part-time job or something, but the issue is your attitude leading to your particular behavior at work? But now your major job maybe is a student. So that is also work. So you need to know, how does your attitude predict how you perform at school, with your assignments, with your examination, with your course? Are you going to get a first-class degree? Are you going for second upper? It depends on your attitude. So when attitudes have a strong relationship to behavior, then the outcome will be obvious. Now, specific attitudes predict specific behavior, and general attitudes predict general behavior. The more frequently expressed attitude, the more frequently expressed an attitude, the better it is at predicting behavior. We had already mentioned this point that high social pressures may reduce the relationship and may cause dissonance. If you have bad boys, if you have bad girls as your friends, they may actually interfere with your attitudes, and therefore your attitudes will not lead you to the desirable behavior. You want to submit your assignment tomorrow, they say, no, it is still a week to go. Why are you hurrying now? You will always submit it. There's always time. And so in the process, you get carried away and you don't submit your work in time. That social pressure is bad and can cause what we call cognitive dissonance. What you expect is not what you get. So, what are the major job attitudes? What are the major job attitudes? We're back now to job attitudes. One, there are many. We are going to look at about 5 of them. The first one on the list is job satisfaction. And this appears even on our title. We're talking about attitudes and job satisfaction. So what is job satisfaction? I think the word job satisfaction is a very familiar word. We talk about it a lot. It's basically a positive feeling about the job resulting from your evaluation of its characteristics. When you say, I love my job, you are actually evaluating that job positively. I like my job. So that's also an expression that you are satisfied with your job. So that is job satisfaction. And normally you find when you can discover when somebody is satisfied with the job by just asking that simple question, are you satisfied with your job? Do you like your job? And so on. There's another concept, another attitude called job involvement. What is job involvement? It is the degree of psychological identification with the job where perceived performance is important to self-worth. So you psychologically identify with the job, psychologically. And psychology is very important. When your whole mind is engrossed in the job, that is involvement. So, and when you are psychologically identified with the job, then your performance is very important because they go together. So now you think, I love the job, I am involved with the job, and therefore my performance is guaranteed. The third job attitude is psychological empowerment. What is this? This is where employees believe in their degree of influence over the job, their competence over the job, and their job meaningfulness. They are empowered psychologically. They are confident that they know the job, they love the job is meaningful to them, they have autonomy, they can exercise autonomy at work. That is psychological empowerment. And it is a very good, it's an important attitude which eventually leads to job performance or a particular behavior. So the fourth type of attitude is organizational commitment. This is also a very common concept. Most people talk about organizational commitment. I'm committed to my employer. I'm committed to my work. I'm committed to my organization. I am committed to UCU. I am committed. So organizational commitment is identifying with a particular organization and its goals while wishing to maintain membership in the organization. So you get married to an organization and say, I'll be with you until death do us part. That is commitment. It's also an attitude which can lead to performance. It can lead to a particular behavior. When you're committed, very committed, definitely your outcome will be good. When you're not committed, the outcome at work will not be good. That's the relationship. Now, there are 3 dimensions of organizational commitment. Researchers have been working on this for a long time. One of the researchers in the 90s, discovered that organizational commitment can have 3 dimensions. One, the affective dimension, which is the emotional attachment to the organization. I feel for this institution. I love this institution. I am committed to this, that affective emotional feeling. There is also what these researchers call continuance commitment, which is the economic value of staying. Why am I staying here? I am staying here because this institution pays for my welfare, pays for my food, pays for my housing, pays for my medical, pays and gives me resources that keep me alive. So that is continuous commitment. You are committed because of the economic value of staying there. And the third type of commitment is called the normative. I am here because of some moral or ethical obligation. I can't quit. I am a nurse. I am a medical doctor. When I came here, I committed myself that I work, and I work under all conditions. So I am committed because of some moral or ethical obligations. I am committed to work regardless. I am committed. So once you have committed yourself and there are some norms guiding that commitment, then you continue and you stay with the organization. That is normative commitment. So those are the three types of categories, dimensions of commitment that are important. When you have all of them together, you're likely to stay in the organization longer, and your behavior, which is this, basically your productivity, will rise. And when it is the opposite, your productivity will low. The fifth attitude, job attitude, is perceived organizational support. We normally call it POS, perceived organizational support. Just a matter of perception. This is the degree to which employees believe the organization values their contribution and cares about their well-being. And this POS is higher when rewards are fair, when employees are involved in decision making, and when their supervisors are seen as supportive. Therefore, high POS is related to higher OCBs, and therefore higher performance. Perceived organizational support. You perceive that your organization supports you, because it's like a tit for tat. If I perceive that my organization supports me, then I also have to work for the organization, because I feel they support me, I feel they care about me, I feel they recognize my contribution, I feel. So that perceived feeling of support is important attitude that will lead to a particular behavior. And finally, and the final attitude, number 6 here, is employee engagement. What does that mean? They define it here as the degree of involvement, satisfaction with, and enthusiasm for the job. That engaged employees are passionate about their work and about their company. Passion. They have the passion for their work, they have the passion for their company. Employee engagement. Researchers from the Netherlands actually expound this concept broader and wider, because they also divide it into 3 components. They say there is the cognitive component, and then there's the emotional component, then there is the physical component. When all components are involved, then you know that somebody is engaged. I am engaged cognitively, I am engaged emotionally, I am engaged physically. So that is a very important attitude that has potential to lead a particular behavior. And maybe the behavior here is productivity or So, having looked at all the 6 job attitudes, are they really distinct? Are they different from each other? Of course, the answer is no, because these attitudes are highly related. Sometimes researchers have discovered that these attitudes are actually measuring the same thing under different names. You may have also followed when I'm explaining each of the 6 attitudes that there is similarity. It's difficult to distinguish between commitment and engagement. They are similar in some respect. It's difficult to differentiate between perceived organizational support and commitment. But anyway, research is ongoing whether these concepts, these attitudes are really distinct or they are just renaming of certain similar concepts. But that's not our point for today. We need to know that there are a number of job attitudes that influence behavior or influence performance. And true, there are overlaps in those. So going back again to job satisfaction. Job satisfaction being one of the concepts in our title. Research has dwelt a lot on job satisfaction. I don't know why, but I think most researchers have found that it is easier to measure job satisfaction. And it's a concept that is as old as man himself. So this is one of the primary job attitudes that are measured. And if you look at literature from the United States of America or other Western world, they do a lot of measurement of job satisfaction. How do they measure job satisfaction? Globally, some of the consultancy firms globally move around the world asking one question all over the world. That one question is, are you satisfied with your job? Are you satisfied with your job? How do you feel about your job? So this question has been carried out in surveys all over the world, and most often you get scoring. Out of 1,000 workers, if 90% say that they are satisfied, then you know that the satisfaction rate is high. So there are also other ways of measuring job satisfaction with many questions. But the majority of the consultancy firms and researchers normally have 1, 2, or 3 questions to ask. Sometimes the job satisfaction question also asks, are you satisfied with your pay? Are you satisfied with your salary? Are you satisfied with the conditions of work? Are you satisfied with your bosses? So those are all satisfaction questions, which can be summed up into, are you satisfied with your job? So the question is, are people satisfied with their jobs? For a long time, that answer for the US has been yes, but the level of satisfaction has been dropping over the time. And now the issue here is the results depend on how job satisfaction is measured. What causes job satisfaction? It's important to know that pay influences job satisfaction only to a point. The research here shows that people earn more than $40,000 a year in the US are more likely to report that they are not satisfied with their job after the $40,000 level. So after $40,000 per year, you find that there's no relationship between the amount you earn and the job satisfaction. That is research. Money may bring happiness, but not necessarily job satisfaction. So personality can also influence job satisfaction. People who are very negative all the time are usually not satisfied with their jobs. Those who are positive, those with the positive core self-evaluation, are more satisfied with their jobs. We've just covered personality last week, and it is being emphasized here that a more positive personality will always lead to a satisfaction in your work. And if you are very negative, you are very critical, everything is bad for you. You are very negative all the time. You'll most likely not be satisfied with your job. So be careful what kind of personality you are, and also how it influences your satisfaction with your job. So how do people respond if they are not satisfied with their job? These are obvious issues. How do you respond when you're not satisfied? The first response would be exit. You leave. If you're not when you're not satisfied, you leave. But if leaving is not the first thing for you, then you voice. You talk about it. You say what makes you dissatisfied. You talk about it with the hope that some changes might be made, improvement might be made. The third option for you would be neglect. You do nothing. You don't exit. You don't talk. You just neglect. You behave as if nothing has happened. You just behave as if nothing is happening and ignore. But in the process, you allow the conditions to worsen. And the last option for you, when you're dissatisfied, you just stay, but passively waiting for opportunities to leave. You stay, pretend to be loyal, but inside, you're waiting for opportunity to leave. Those are the four ways in which people respond to dissatisfaction at work. So, before we conclude this chapter, we also need to know, and we have mentioned this before, what are the outcomes of job satisfaction? What happens when people are satisfied with their job? One is that job performance will increase because satisfied workers are more productive. Secondly, there might be organizational citizenship behaviors. What is this concept of? We normally call it OCB because it is a full mouth. Saying organizational citizenship behavior is a full mouth. So most often we say OCB. So what is OCB? OCB is where you work beyond your legal or beyond your terms of contract. When they say work between 9 and 5 o'clock, you can decide to stay longer and do more, not because you're going to be paid for it, but because you want to do more for the sake of your organization. You can volunteer to do work which you're not supposed to do, not for a pay, but just for the sake of your organization. So any action that you perform that is not paid for, it's not part of your terms of contract, not part of your job description, but it is helping the organization, is OCB. So people who are satisfied with their job, they are likely to perform OCB. They do more than they are expected to do. Thirdly is what we call customer satisfaction. If you are satisfied with your job, you are likely to cause the customers also to be satisfied. Especially when you are in the front line, like frontline employees. If you are at the front desk, where people interact with you very often, if you are smiling, if you are happy, if you are welcoming, if you express job satisfaction, then the customers also will feel satisfied. But if you are at the front desk and then you are not satisfied and you're gloomy and you're complaining and you're grumbling, it's likely that your grumbling will be transferred into your customers in form of rudeness, in form of negligence, and so your customers will not be satisfied. So satisfied employees create satisfied customers. And the fourth outcome is absenteeism. If you are satisfied with your work, you are likely not to be absent. Every morning you look forward to go to work because you are satisfied. Every morning you look forward, even when you're not feeling very well, you say, oh, let me go and see how much I can do. If the condition worsens, I'll go home, but I have to go. So satisfied employees will not consider it. 5 is turnover. Turnover is normally about quitting the organization. So there's a relationship between job satisfaction and turnover. Employees who are satisfied with their job are likely not. Of course, the opposite is true. If you're not satisfied, one of the options, as we said before, is to quit. So when you quit, that's what we call turnover. You leave the organization. So the sixth outcome of job satisfaction is workplace deviance. So dissatisfied workers are more likely to unionize, to abuse substance, to abuse alcohol, to abuse drugs, to steal, to work slow, and to withdraw. That is deviance. So job satisfaction is very important because it has positive outcomes. And when we are not satisfied, the consequences are also grave. So managers must make sure that their employees are satisfied with their job because the consequences. As we conclude, we're looking at global implications. Is job satisfaction basically a US concept? Because most of the research on job satisfaction is based in the US and mostly in the Western world. So is it a majorly Western concept? No. Most of the research so far has been done in the US, fine, but employees in non-Western cultures are also satisfied with their jobs. The only difference is that Western workers appear to be more satisfied than the ones from Eastern culture or the South. Why? Because Westerners emphasize positive emotions and individual achievements more than those in the South. I mean, in the South, we are more collective. We are more collective, and sometimes we also don't express our emotions because of our cultures. We don't express, when we are not satisfied, we don't talk. When we are satisfied, we don't talk. So it's difficult to understand somebody from the South, generally speaking. But the people in the West, when they are not satisfied with something, they will say it. And when they're satisfied, they will say it. So they communicate openly. And therefore, we can know whether they are more satisfied or not satisfied. So this is the final slide. What are the managerial implications of what is we have looked at? Managers should watch employees' attitudes because those attitudes give warnings of potential problems. Watch out for those attitudes. Watch out for those employee attitudes, the very many attitudes that we have studied today, because they have implications for behavior. Okay? So secondly, managers should try to increase job satisfaction and generate positive job attitudes. Once people are satisfied with their jobs, they can also generate positive job attitudes, commitment, engagement, involvement, pause, and so on. All those are important for positive outcomes. Satisfied employees are more likely to have all the others as well. Because satisfied employees reduce cost of turnover, they reduce the cost of absenteeism, the cost of tardiness, slowness at work, they reduce the cost of theft, and they also increase OCB. So that is the importance of attitudes and the importance of satisfaction. Once those are taken care of, every manager must ensure that he takes care of job attitudes and mostly job satisfaction. When that is taken care of, the sky is the limit. Productivity can go up and all the other vital outcomes can go up. This is the end of our presentation today. Our next chapter will be on perception and decision making. So now you can go to Moodle. This presentation has been posted there. The question for chapter 4 has also been posted there, and other information that you need for your course also posted in Moodle. I encourage everybody to submit their assignments on Moodle. Before you submit them, please convert them from Word to PDF. It's easier to grade when your work is in PDF. So I encourage everybody to submit work on Moodle in PDF format. All the best. God bless you. Bye.